Today we catch up with Annie Knight, a librarian and instructor at Santa Ana College. Part of her work involves supporting textbook affordability and open educational resources, or OER, initiatives on her campus. So Annie, what is open educational resources, or OER?
OER refers to learning materials, which can come in the form of a textbook or other kinds of learning objects or contents that are openly licensed, which typically means these OER contents are allowed to be freely reused by other people, faculty, students, and also depending on the level of openness with the OER, the contents are free for people to adapt. So for instance, if a faculty member wants to use an OER in their, like an open textbook in their course, they can modify the content to meet the specific needs of their course or the community of students they're serving. And
Cool.
if anyone's interested in learning more about the different open licensing structures of OER, it's pretty easy to find just Googling Creative Commons licenses, and you can see the distinctions between the different CC licenses available that OER uses.
Cool. Is this related to UNESCO? Is this like an international thing?
Yeah, so OER is used globally, and UNESCO put out a sort of statement about it a while back. I don't remember the year, but it's been a while now, about their support for OER as with the support for, access to information, education, and affordability that this brings, because that's another component to OER that is, one of the most enticing aspects of it, especially for students, is that typically OER is provided for free. And so when you're talking about like OER textbooks, for example, and you think about how much, traditional textbooks cost, that's definitely something to celebrate, especially when we're trying to be supportive of student equity and access to their learning materials.
Cool. So how did you first, hear about this? And how did this get implemented at your college?
Yeah, so before I worked at Santa Ana College, I was a distance education librarian for Chapman University, and I also worked with their kind of sister institution, Brandman University, and I taught online courses there. And Brandman, working with some of the administrators and instructors there at Brandman, they actually introduced me to, OER. And right about the time I was getting ready to move over to my new position at Santa Ana College, they were investigating potential uses of OER in their courses. At that time, that was back in like 2014, there wasn't as much OER available as there is now. Now you can find OER across the disciplines. And, it seems like the collections are growing daily thanks to the contributions of faculty who are openly licensing their work so that others can use it as OER.
Cool, cool. Wow. So is there anything I might have missed about OER? I mean, it sounds really amazing how people are just contributing to this project, and it seems to be getting bigger every year.
So there, like I said, there's the collections of OER growing. There are sites like OER Commons where anyone can go to find OER for different subject areas, even down to like specific types of courses. Um, and this is definitely to credit those faculty, like I said, who are openly licensing their content and sharing it out.
Hmm.
What's great is that as a way to incentivize faculty for doing that, we're starting to see more campuses in their, adjust like their tenure processes to acknowledge the publications, acknowledge OER as like bona fide publications that faculty are, maybe required to produce for their tenure. Also, in some instances, when interviewing for like full-time positions, that is becoming a question that's raised. Do you have experience with OER? This isn't at every institution, but I'm hearing more and more in the professional groups I'm involved with around OER that, this is a growing trend, and it's something we're, advocating on our campus as well. And in fact, when I interviewed for my position that I hold now, that was something I spoke about during my own interview. And, because I had started to develop that experience with knowing what's out there with regard to OER, and, how I could imagine it growing on our campus. But I was lucky to have come onto a campus where OER was already in the works. And in a variety of contexts. And if you like, I can speak a little bit more to how it all plays out on our campus.
Sure.
Okay. So at Santa Ana College, and I'm going to brag a little bit about my campus here, but I'm really proud of our long history, relatively speaking, when considering OER, with OER, in that our campus started out, thanks to the leadership of our current distance education and OER coordinator, started out as kind of a piecemeal effort, just getting any faculty involved who, who was willing to be a part of the work to develop OER classes on campus and offer OER in their courses. And now the movement has grown to the point where we offer two fully OER degree pathways. So we have a business admin and a liberal arts, AA degree pathway, where essentially students are able to take all their courses and utilizing OER. Or we also have a caveat to that, which is zero textbook cost courses. And so, as you can tell kind of by the name, those courses also offer their learning materials at no additional cost. But in addition to utilizing OER, they might also utilize traditionally copyrighted materials that are legitimately freely available.
What OER projects are you currently involved, on your campus?
Well, one of my primary roles is helping faculty in my position as a librarian find relevant OER for their courses, just helping them find what's available to them. And my cat's joining us now. And, to meet their course objectives and that sort of thing. But I'm also, in my own classes, I utilize OER. I teach like library research or information literacy type of courses, as well as a course for our library tech program that teaches about public services in libraries. And one of the OER type of or open pedagogy projects we've done in that class and is where students are actually participating and being creators of the content that will be used in future classes. They're taking what they've learned and they're assuming that role of content creator and sort of giving back in that way. So that's really exciting. Plus, what I also find inspiring about like open pedagogy projects where students are involved in the creation of the learning materials is that we're opening up the voices included in these learning materials that can traditionally, be dominated by like, white narratives and things like that. And so this is, from what I'm seeing, it's really kind of allowing more perspectives in to our learning content that should be voiced and should be heard. And of course, in my faculty role, I help guide that process, and so I could go on, but that's the basic gist of some of the ways I support and utilize OER in my role as a librarian and an instructor.
Cool. Annie, thank you for sharing about OER and, helping me understand more about this. And I hope that it is implemented on more campuses.